Today you will see how I swapped the engine in this car, as the engine is broken. Probably the crankshaft bearings are shot, and I do have a replacement engine for this car, so we better put that one in instead of repairing this one, as the one I bought from eBay was really cheap and it was restored, so it should run. Let's hope it runs, because it's sitting in a crate already for 8 years. I chose to place back the original engine size and not a bigger one, because it takes a lot of paperwork to get a bigger one in, and also it will destroy the handling of the car, as it's handling perfect with this light engine, and this light engine is strong enough for this light car. So I'm very pleased with what my grandparents and granduncle did. As they built this workshop, they also built in a pit so you can repair your car. And for this car, that's still making a lot of sense. So I'm very glad that they made this pit 50 years back when this workshop was built. So the first thing to do now is drain the oil and the cooling liquid. So let's do that. So this car is really old, so don't look at all the rust and patchwork that we had to do on it, because if we did not do it, then this car would not be here today, because these cars are known as rust cars. It's a 1979 Opel Kadett 1.2 liter sedan. So here we have the temperature sensor sitting. This one measures the temperature of the cooling liquid. So these big hoses are to cool the engine. So all the cooling liquid will go from the engine into the radiator, and that will cool down the engine. So this little hose here is to bring cooling liquid into the car to heat up the car in the winter. That's where your heating comes from. So by turning the heater higher or lower, this valve will open or close more, and that will take more or less cooling fluid from the engine into the car instead of into the radiator. So right here we have the vacuum from the brake. This pipe generates the vacuum for the brake, or actually it transports it, because the engine itself is generating vacuum and the brake is using the vacuum for brake support. So we have to loosen that. So this lever here is the gas throttle, and this was actually the choke, so I can prevent too much air coming in if the engine is cold. And once the engine is hot, it needs more air and less fuel, so I can open the choke valve then again. At this point it seems easier to take out the complete exhaust manifold. So I have to loosen this pipe up, and then I can take the whole manifold out. So it is easier to take the engine out together with the gearbox. That means that we have to ensure that the gearbox is free as well. So the engine and the gearbox have to be freed up. And the first thing I start with is releasing the drive shaft, because you cannot take it out without disconnecting the drive shaft. And I don't want to bend it, so we loosen it on this side. The gearbox is loose now. Now the two bolts from the engine, and then we should be able to lift the engine out with the forklift. So it is lifting time. Let's see how that's gonna work out. Hope nothing gets damaged. Hope that the gearbox comes out properly. So, seems the engine comes out without any problems. I'm really happy about that. So, nice. It's quite empty this way. So, the engine is out and on the ground. Now it's time to take a look at the other engine I have laying around. Getting spares is not that easy, so having spares for yourself makes sense. And it's free, it's nice. another thing that has to happen is to detach the gearbox and attach it to that engine. So let's do that first. So the clutch pedal that I did have in the car was a little bit worn out. You cannot really see it. Well, you can see the glare of it, and that should tell you how much worn it is. It's not giving a lot of friction. So after a long search we found a clutch plate in the old storage of a garage nearby. So I got a new clutch plate for my Opel Kadett C, which is really nice because you cannot get these on the internet anymore, supposedly. So now let's see how we put the clutch in and get it working again, because we still have not seen the engine runs, but first we have to put the clutch in. So we also need to replace the rear crankshaft sealing, because that one is probably gone, and we are at it now, so it's easy to replace it at this time. So let's do that. So for changing the rear crankshaft sealing, we need to take off the flywheel, and I have this special bit to do that. So it seems like I got the correct sealing, so now let's take the old one out and put this one in. So now it's time to put the clutch in place. Everything is prepared and we can bring the clutch in. So let's do that. So it's time to put the carburetor back on the engine. This is the intake fuel line. Assembling at this moment. It has to be tight because I don't want fuel leaks.
naar de beste tuinspeciaalzaak van Nederland. Welkom, verstand van tuin en dier en...
So I did require some help to get the timing correct for the ignition, but now everything is set correctly and I can start the engine, so we got it running.
So the engine has everything that is really necessary to run. It doesn't have cooling yet, but for running for less than a minute we don't really need cooling. Just want to make sure I shut it down on time if it runs, because the question is still, does it run? So we have to figure that out, so let's see how it does.
So as you could see, the engine runs. It's not running perfect at this moment, but that's because one of the vacuum connections is not connected, because the air filter is not attached on top, and I'm not attaching that one because I first have to connect the cooling system and also the drive shaft and check that all the bolts are secured, and then we can start it. Now we can only run for a few seconds because it has no cooling, but I just need to make sure that the engine runs before I connect everything. So now the engine is complete, the air filter is on, no vacuum leaks anymore. Let's see if it runs smoother now. If it does, and we let it warm up, we can change the oil filter, as all the dirt and stuff that got sit in the engine will come out. I already put new oil in. I just need to put a new filter in, because I'm still running on the old filters at this moment, so all the dirt and stuff goes into the old filter. And then with the new filter, it should stay clean for a while, and the oil, yeah, gets filtered by the filter.
That's why we filled it first with water. I had to fix that valve and I glued it because I cannot get that part anymore. It seems that the glue is dissolving. So since I found out that this valve is bad and I don't have a replacement and I cannot buy it either because it's not available anymore. So I need to find some kind of hobbyist or something to get that valve. For the meantime, I put a pipe in between because
So now it's time to put the drive shaft back in place, because it's one of the last missing parts, and then we can finally drive with the car. And I also need to fix the exhaust, because I had to cut it to get it out, to get the engine out. Now I get to get it fixed and leak free. So since I got a new clutch, I also need to adjust the clutch new, because it was still sitting on the old settings. And I tried starting in the first gear with the clutch pedal full in, and it engaged. So it is driving if the clutch pedal is in, and that's not supposed to happen. So we have to tighten the clutch cable. So the engine ran for 5 minutes now, and I already got the oil light burning. Well, the engine sit for a long time, so it could be that all the dirt is now in the oil filter. So the first thing I do now is replace the oil filter and see how it performs after doing that. Hopefully the problem is gone. So as we can see, the oil light is flashing. A little bit more throttle, well, a lot more throttle, then it's not. So I have to figure out what the problem is. But it really seems to be something with the oil pressure. Otherwise it would be flashing all the time, probably. So I found the problem already. This connection up here, and of course a wire touching chassis sometimes. Yeah, and then it's logical. This is the oil sensor. And then it's very logical. This should be on there, and that's my oil sensor. Because it makes sense that the oil sensor is just behind the oil filter. And I'm glad I found it, and it was something easy. Of course I should have seen this earlier, but yeah. Off straight away. I think it's solved now. There's no pressure at all in there, so that's perfect. That means the gasket is good. This engine has been sitting for a while, and it could be that the head gasket is gone, but it's fine. So I did a little bit of test driving, so I still have to do 2 more things. Let's change the water in the radiator for actual cooling liquid, because it's getting winter and I don't want this engine to freeze, because then it will be broken. So I need to have cooling liquid in it. The other thing is the pulley at the crankshaft has a little dent. So it's oscillating, and maybe that's also the reason why the engine is oscillating. So I want to replace that pulley also with a straight pulley. So I took the pulley of the old engine, which I know is straight, and I will be putting that on, and then it should be running straight. Otherwise I have a problem in the crankshaft, but I'm not expecting that. So with this pulley it should be good. So let's put it on. The new pulley is on. Now, before I'm gonna attach the cooling again, I first wanna find out if it's straightened. It's still got a light wobble, but it's way less as with the old one. This is probably just also in this pulley, but I'm gonna leave it this way. So now it's running fine again. That means the job is done. So it is a bit dirty, so it might be good to wash it right now, because I just swapped the engine. It will be looking a little bit better. So that's all for today's video. The new engine is running fine in the car, and the car can drive again, so that's perfect. So don't forget to like and subscribe for upcoming videos. The next videos won't be about this car, but back in the yard again, so stay tuned.